first session today. Welcome to the Fair. Thanks for joining us for our first session in Seminar Room 1, which is about career and work-life balance. We've all learned a lot about different ways of work-life balance, different challenges of work-life balance over the last 3 years. And this I'm delighted to welcome our panelists here today. So we've got Katie Dunne from Applegreen, we've got Meadhbh Broderick from Glanbia, and Colm Lougheed from Allianz. So thanks you all for joining us here today, and looking forward to hearing their insights and obviously your own insights as well, your own thoughts. At the end of we'll have a brief discussion here for 20 minutes, and then we'll have time for questions afterwards. Okay? So can everyone hear us okay? You all good? Great, thanks. And Nina will be taking some pictures. So I mean, okay, I suppose we asked this question. I'll start on my left. Okay, Colm, if we asked this question maybe 3 years ago about work-life balance, and you asked the same question today, maybe some very different answers. I mean, if someone's to say to you, it could be your own organisation, how would we define work-life balance in terms of how we promote it to our employees or our future hires? What is work-life balance?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question. It has changed with, I suppose, with COVID and hybrid working. Work-life balance has changed. And how it's perceived. But I think work-life balance is different for different people. I suppose at a general level, it's how you prioritise your work life and how you prioritise your home life as well. But I think there's a really big focus on at the moment. Obviously, make sure you're productive in work, but you're also getting a balance of being well and looking after yourself outside of work. So I think with hybrid working and all the different changes that we've gone through the last 2 years, there's a massive focus on it for people's well-being. And also from a work perspective.
And I suppose, Meadhbh, people always talk about turning off time, and you even see footers of emails now about we don't expect you to answer after a certain time. So, do you think that work-life balance, in terms of what it actually is, are people more responsible for it? Is it something more now that organisations have to somehow promote in terms of a culture?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think, look, every organisation is going to set these big agendas and have all of these programs, but I suppose I don't have a straight answer. Ultimately, it comes down to the relationship you have with your manager. At the end of the day, the organisation can have all of these policies and these practices, but your manager either buys into that or they don't. So I think what you need to get really clear is setting your boundaries with your manager. Is that, okay, you can do your flexi hours, you can start early in the morning, finish up early, you start later, you finish up later. Maybe you can go and work from a different country for a few weeks if they're open to that. Most managers, honestly, if they're good managers, will understand that as long as you're performing, you're getting your job done, you're meeting your targets, exceeding your targets, you can do that in whatever way suits you. Because, as you said, it's different for everyone and people are productive in different ways. So I think it's just proving that to your manager and gaining agreement that that's the way you are going to work. That's probably the most important piece about it.
Okay, thanks, Meadhbh. And Katie, when people talk about starting your career, a lot of people here may not even be working yet, maybe looking at the right place to start their career. And a lot of jobs are marked as remote, hybrid. What tips would you have for graduates starting off? Graduates want to impress in their first job, so they're willing to work hard, as they always have been. But now they might find themselves trying to do that, demonstrate that remotely or in a hybrid environment. Any tips you might have about what steps you could take in the very earliest part of your career to get that balance right? To show that you are indeed working hard for your organisation, but you're taking care of yourself, which is something the organisation do prioritise.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, when you start out somewhere, you're always very keen and eager. I would say that about myself as well. You do want to demonstrate, there's a reason you hired me and I'm here, right? I think the first few weeks when you're in role, I actually would recommend that you do go in. I think face-to-face for your first role, being shown systems, being able to turn to somebody and ask them something. But to be honest, I don't think that can probably be as replicated through virtual. And then thereafter, I honestly think some people think they need to be logging on for 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day, showing that they're online, showing you're on green for anyone that might be looking. But it's really about the quality of the work that you're sending in, and that's what your employer is going to be looking at. Not if you're sending in work that is good quality, it's adding value. That's what they're going to be looking at. They're not going to be looking at how many hours you clocked in that day, and that's not what will impress them at the start. So I think try and find an area you can add a little bit of value quickly when you come in, and that can be something really simple like streamlining or making a little bit of an efficiency with something that they do as a process in there. But use that time when you go in, you're open eyes, you're totally keen, you haven't seen what they do in the business. I tell my graduates, jot down the stuff you question why we do it that way when you come in, and then that can be something that you work on a little bit to improve an efficiency there and add value quickly. Just one tip I'd give.
No, that's true.
Oh, thanks very much, Katie. Colm, and I mean that's a very good tip about, you know, it is important to be on site when you can at the start of your career, but not all jobs allow this. Some roles are now completely remote, and you know, you can find yourself working, sharing a kitchen table with 3 or 4 people, you know, working in the bedroom. It can be lonely, you know, and then again, I suppose there is some of the trade-off. People are happy with the hybrid environment, but you know, in terms of what tips would you give to someone who you're working with, who you only ever see on the screen, in terms of how they take care of themselves and strike that balance right?
Yeah. I suppose interestingly, I suppose we did a survey there recently through the Journal in August in relation to hybrid working, kind of Allianz did, and how it impacted on people's satisfaction. And I think 70% of people said they were happier with the hybrid working model than previously being in the office all the time. But you hit the nail on the head there. I think when you're working from home, you have to be very disciplined. So you nearly have to replicate what it's like being in the office. So there's massive benefits to it, as in, you know, people don't have to travel to the office, they have more available time, but you also need to be disciplined. So when you're in the office, you're socialising, you're going for your coffee, you're having your lunch, and I think the big thing is when you're in the office, you're getting in your car and you're going home, so you're switched off. Whereas with your home, it's actually very hard to switch off because you're always on. So I think it's a matter of actually replicating the office environment in a home setting. And as I kind of touched on before, it's not about the hours you work. It's about how productive you are and the output you're given. So I think if you're working full time from home, it's very important that you're disciplined, and like, you know, and your manager knows that, because otherwise it can be very easy to kind of, you know, settle into, you know, you're sitting at your desk or your kitchen table or whatever and working. You're non-stop. You have to stop for your breaks like you would in the office. You have to stop for your lunch, and then at the end of the day, you have to step away from your office as if you're step away from your room, your office, as if you're stepping away from your work. But it's easily said than done.
It's very easy to say that. I mean, if people are saying, "Oh, just reply to this one more email," I better just get that done. You know, and if you see someone else, the dreaded green light. You know, someone else is, you know, who might be your manager or supervisor. You know,
absolutely.
Do you feel that there is a good, and I'm open this to everybody, that there is a far better acceptance now that people will not reply to that message in the morning?
Well, I think someone touched on it there earlier in relation to there's responsibility to the employer as well as the employee. So I think you know, an employer's responsibility and duty of care for their employees to make sure there's an environment where work-life balance is accepted. So and then you touched on management as well, like, you know, it has to lead from the top. So you need to promote that culture as an employer, but then as an employee, you need to follow it as well. So it's kind of a mixture of both.
Okay, and Meadhbh, I mean, in terms of what you might have learned over the last few years about striking that balance. I mean, I know some days we were all dying to just talk to somebody. So I mean, but now I suppose you know life is resumed its normal pace. But what have you learned about your own personal balance and strike?
So look, everything that's been said is A1 for me, and I'll just add that I'm actually based out of Chicago, so I just happen to be in Ireland at the moment, so that's why I'm here. But as a result, when I am in Chicago, I like to start early in the morning. Like when we talk about fixing our own schedule to work, to, you know, the way we like to work, I start around 6 a.m. Now, I like to start at 6 a.m. because I think I get like 2 or 3 hours before everyone joins online in America. But the reality is the majority of my team is in Ireland. So, and now that I'm back in Ireland, I could work up to 18 hours a day if I allowed myself to, because when Ireland is online and then Ireland goes offline, America's online. So this is where setting boundaries is absolutely critical. And like, I don't know if any of you, I'm always really interested in the psychology behind habit forming and habit creation. And you know, the theory, I think it's Daniel Pink started it, is when you describe yourself as that person. So that's when you really start to form habits. Is, okay, I run every day. I'm the girl who runs every day. But maybe it's I'm the lady who doesn't bring her laptop on holidays. I'm the lady who doesn't work at the weekends. Like, you have to almost...
Reminding you all that our seminars are now live across our seminar rooms and Grad Island Talk stage.
you almost have to describe yourself as that and convince yourself of those things, because as you said, you're just going to continue on. But I suppose tactics I use, unfortunately in Chicago, exercise classes cost an arm and a leg, and you get charged if you don't attend them. So if you are not getting out of the office, or you're not getting out of your workspace before like 6 o'clock every day, even just a few times a week, schedule an exercise class at that time. You're not going to miss it if you have to pay for it. So you'll get up and you'll leave. And like, I think even the research shows, versus, you know, if you do something really high energy versus like going and sitting on the couch, it's way better for, I suppose, like resilience building or recovery in terms of your mental health and your energy. So look, I think first of all, you need to identify what works for you. Exercise classes and running are the things that I do, especially outdoors, if you can at all, you know, if possible. They're, you know, my re-energizer. And now that I know that has changed my life. Because you'd be surprised, you think, oh yeah, you know what re-energizes you, but until you actually say, okay, this is the thing that re-energizes me, I need to make sure I'm doing this on a daily basis or a few times a week, whatever that looks like for you. But whatever that is, like I know people on my team, some of them have like a hand wash that they use or a hand lotion. And that's what re-energizes them. It doesn't have to be physical exercise. It can be anything. No, but you know what I mean? Like, it just brings them peace. It brings them like calmness.
And it's interesting what you said there, you know, that it works for you to start at 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, I would start at 7 and finish at 3.
Yeah.
Would that work for everybody? Would some people prefer to start at 12 and finish at 8? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know some people who love to start at 3 in the afternoon and work till midnight. But as you say, it's very important you find that thing that re-energizes you during the
making sure you know what it is and doing it.
And Katie, any tips yourself on what you would have learned over the last 3 years?
Yeah, so I suppose time management and organisation are just key skills to focus on when you first start out. There is a really good book by a man called Stephen Covey. It's the 7 Principles of Highly Effective.
Yeah, I was going to talk about it myself. Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Make sure your handset is set to 0. I'm just going to listen into the headphones. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'll pause my wisdom for a moment.
It's more money.
Okay, you need to put on your headsets there, folks. Make sure to set to channel 0. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Kate, go ahead.
No worries. So yeah, in the book by Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, it sold millions, like, and there's a reason why. So he talks about your big rocks, okay? And your big rocks and your little rocks. So at the start of the week, I plan out, like, what are my big priorities for that week? And I map in the time to do it, and I protect that time in my calendar. And that gives me a sense of calm, because I know there's time allocated when I'm going to be able to work on that. I keep a 1 day per page diary. I'm giving really practical tips here now, but on it I write my list as well of like things I want to do, and if I don't need it that day, they come over onto the next page, and they keep going until you get it done on it. And then I think just like you said before, like taking that time for yourself as well, and knowing what relaxes you in the evening, and not get the most out of your work, but like not to let it get to a stage where there's resentment building. It shouldn't be that building. Like if you're happy to work until 8 o'clock in the evening because you have your why, like you want to get a promotion, you want to do really well, you know, you care about the project that you're working on, that's great, because that's why you want to do it. But if that's not your why, if you're not getting any sort of satisfaction out of it or anything, it's time to question it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You mentioned the word resilience there, and I think that's important because you know not everyone is working yet. So that, as I said, I mentioned before, we're not even striking work-life balance, but this applies to all parts of your life. So in this, I know you're going to all kill me afterwards for deviating from the questions.
You're okay.
But
computer doesn't compute.
For someone who is doing on a job hunt, who is doing an internship, which may not be paid great. You know, for someone who is out there looking for jobs and in CVs, they may be getting a lot of knockbacks. You know, in terms of striking a balance when dealing through challenging times like that. I remember back in the mists of time at this stage. You know, it's very hard to think about striking a balance when you're just trying to move a step forward. What advice would you have to someone in that situation who's trying to get out there every day, get the applications in, perhaps get an interview or two, perhaps not getting any further, in terms of, a bit of self-care when you're going through a tough time?
Yeah, look, I think it's, that was on the list, all right, but it's okay.
Definitely
I think it's just, like you kind of touched on it there, like once you believe in something and it's something you want to do, just keep going.
I suppose progress is progress, no matter how small.
Exactly, yeah.
Even if you're getting that one video interview, which you weren't getting last week, it's a step forward.
Exactly, yeah. And celebrate the small wins as well. So, if you do get an interview, that's positive. Thousands of applications come in and they've chose you based on your CV. So take that as a positive. If you get feedback from an interview but you're not successful, learn from it. But always look to go forward. Unfortunately, life isn't easy, and you have to work at it. But I think it's having a positive mindset as well, and keep plugging away is really important as well. But I think some of the issues that people come across.
We have making the most out of your first year of your graduate career, starting shortly in Seminar Room 2.
I think one of the biggest mistakes people can do is doing the same thing over and over again and not learning from it.
Yeah.
So whether you're in work or you're looking for a job, it's just very important to take a step back. I'm going to say to all of my team as well, and see what's working well and what you can improve on. But I think a positive mindset and celebrate the small wins is a step forward.
Okay. Just looking at one of the clock. Has anyone got any questions or any observations themselves, or what the thoughts of work-life balance, lack thereof, what they've learned over the last few years? Anything you'd like to put towards our panellists?
Hi guys. So as a student during COVID, I kind of used a lot of that downtime to sort of focus on college a lot.
Yeah.
But now that everything's kind of coming back, I'm finding it really difficult.
Starting shortly at CV seminars, we have Focusing on the Future. Learn how to strengthen your skills, experience and CV.
Yeah. So I'm finding it really difficult to find that work-life balance again. So I'm definitely studying a bit too much as I should, and I'm not giving enough time for myself. So what sort of advice would you give? Because obviously in college you're not under that sort of 9 to 5 it's sort of up to yourself how much you want to do, and I'm finding myself I won't stop, so what advice would you give for someone in that situation?
Yeah, so look, I think it comes back to what you were saying in terms of what's your why. Basically, if you're prioritizing one thing, you're sacrificing another. So you need to identify, out of the list of things you want to do, which ones do you want to prioritize. Like if, going out with your friends, going for trying new restaurants is high on your priority list, then you have to realize, okay, well, these 2 hours of study have to be sacrificed. But if that means that I am a better person, I'm a more rounded person, I'm a healthier person mentally, physically, emotionally, that's what you have to do. So it's as basic as that, just understanding if something's prioritized, another thing is being sacrificed.
Okay, and Katie, how would you apply the big rocks, little rocks thing to that sort of situation?
Yeah, so again, it's kind of, I suppose, scheduling your priorities for the week, and just at that rate, you will burn out. Even when people exercise, they take rest days. It's the same for your brain. You will burn out. You're spending time reading. It's not going to go in. You're not well-rounded. You're not protecting the other parts of you. And as well, I can't speak for both of them, but myself as an employer who recruits graduates and interns, it's not all about the
We don't want the studiers.
You want somebody who is,
you want someone who's showing up frazzled.
Yeah.
No, but you're well-rounded, and we'll look at the holistic full application when it comes in. It's not just about that. But yeah, it's definitely, as she said there, find what is the bigger priority for you. It may be the case you're extremely ambitious and you're working towards it first, and that matters the most to you. Then you need to be happy and okay with giving that time to it. But if that's not the number one priority, you need to re-look at it a little bit.
Another question here, sorry.
So imagine yourself as a person in your life as a house on stilts.
Okay.
You're taking this question, yeah?
This one for you guys.
Work, looking after yourself, you're running or whatever exercise you do, and your good hobbies before stilts. If the work still collapses on you, and that throws everything else into disarray, what is the best possible scenario to come out of it?
So if one of the pillars that's holding your life together as such completely crumbles, how do you, Colm, you're made for it.
Well, look, I can't talk about the exercise thing. I'll let myself go a little bit. But look, I think the first question you asked about work-life balance and what does that mean? And I think that's a really good example.
Well, the thing is that I was working at a good salary. This week I'm working 2 part-time jobs, simply paying ends meet. And they're part-time jobs in catering. I had an industry job.
Okay, so that's a question about resilience and dealing with a serious serious setback, and how do you? I mean, I suppose in that sort of I hate to use the word catastrophic, but it's that's a serious blow to obviously your self-esteem and your career plans. And I suppose the supports there are probably not all within this room, unfortunately, for that situation. But I mean, if someone was to come to you, or if you were to a family member or a close friend to deal with that sort of situation, Katie, do you have
Yeah, I think just sharing from a personal experience, I remember having something happen, and I had left a job and I was looking for a new job, and I went in for a job that I actually didn't think. I thought I was actually overqualified for, if I'm honest, and I didn't get it. And I remember that really knocked my confidence. I was really couldn't believe I didn't get it. Got a good wake up call about myself. But you know what? I got hungrier. I went after more. I upskilled in areas that I took the feedback that came back to me, and I was like, do you know what? They're right. I didn't like hearing it, and it burnt a little bit at the time. But there might be an area I needed to work on. And actually, I ended up joining that company in a totally different role later, and the role I would have gotten that I was turned down from, I'm so glad I didn't get.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was there was a reason it happened, right? But I took the learning from it. I went back and I, asked for feedback or look for a way forward. Upskill yourself as well. Always just invest in you.
A reminder that in Seminar Room 2, making the most out of first year of your graduate career is kicking off in the next few minutes.
Sorry about that, but I think it's a good point there, and I think for yourself maybe as well to realise that you've said there about it's easy to say I think as well at times that invest in yourself, but when you're trying to work 2 jobs and literally pay the bills, but a future employer will look at what this attendee has done and go,
oh yeah,
this shows a hell of a lot
And
of
make
backbone,
sure you
a hell of a lot
sell
of
that.
resilience, that you dust yourself up, you went out, you got 2 jobs, you're paying the bills, and you're doing your best.
Honestly.
And that is impressive, really important.
And look, it's not easy, but you mentioned 4 stilts as well, so
Yeah.
it's important to focus on those 4 stilts as well. Your mental health, make sure you're
Those
talking
three are
to
very
people, you have
important.
support as well
Yeah.
as the employment thing. So that's a really good example. And look, obviously, just keep talking to people and make sure that you have the proper support.
Protect the other 3, but I mean, the 4th one that you have lost, I mean, even by showing that you've gone out and done that,
exactly.
and the skills you're going to learn, and transferable skills are so important.
In our CV seminar stage, we have Focusing on the Future. Learn how to strengthen your skills, experience and CV, kicking off in the next few minutes.
So, that's all we can say. And as I said, I don't think all the supports are here in this room, but we hope whatever we've given is some support. Okay. If any final questions or observations, thoughts? Anyone from you okay with it? Yeah? Anything else you want to? No?
No.
Okay, listen, thanks all so much for taking the time to join us.